My name's Wolf, and through this series of videos I'm going to introduce you to the crazy over-the-top world that nerds like me love so much, that is Warhammer 40,000. So get comfy, buckle in, and prepare for a Noob-Splaining session. So when I say Space Marine, the first image that probably pops into your head is the image of those big guys in the blue armour. Those Marines in blue that you keep seeing on the front cover of what feels like everything are actually from the Ultramarines chapter. For a long time the player base of 40k considered the Ultramarines to be by far the second most boring chapter there is, but for some reason Games Workshop decided to push them to the moon, so they soon picked up the derogatory nickname of Ultra Smurfs. Although in the lore the Ultramarines are portrayed as the most effective and honourable warriors amongst all Space Marines, in reality their special skill is their ability to micromanage logistics timetables. I have in the past made jokes that what a Space Marine does in their spare time for an Ultramarine is they have the world's biggest model railway kit just to practice micromanaging the shit out of logistics timetables. Personally I feel that chapters like the Blood Angels, Dark Angels and Space Wolves have much more interesting backgrounds, but out of all the chapters, and if you're watching this Valorak, put your fingers in your ears, I find the Imperial Fist to be the most boring. So how do you actually make a Space Marine? First of all, you need to find a willing participant who wants to become a Space Marine aspirant. You then have to put the potential aspirant through a trial in a similar style to the US Navy SEALs Hell Week. But this being the overtop world of 40k, there is no pass or fail. You either pass or die. You then get to spend the next 10 years being thoroughly trained in every type of warfare whilst receiving approximately 21 surgeries to add all the new genetic material and additional organs to make you into a Space Marine. By the end of that process, you will be around 8 foot tall and weighing 500 pounds of sheer muscle. The full process of becoming a Space Marine is a video all in itself, and one I will cover later down the line. I just wanted to reiterate the fact this is not a quick process, nor is it pleasant. Now, let's get on to standard Space Marine equipment, shall we? Out of all the fictional IPs out there, the only other set of armour that is more easily identifiable belongs to that of the Stormtroopers. The original Firstborn Marines were the ones wearing all the classic Mark 8 power armour, which looks like this. However, with the new Primaris upgrade and Primaris Marines being slightly bigger than their Firstborn cousins, the Mark 8 wouldn't fit them. So they did what every good company does, like Microsoft and Apple, and skipped the Mark 9 and went straight to the Mark 10. The Mark 10 armour looks like this. Now apart from the helmet change, it doesn't look that different. Ironically enough, that helmet is actually from the Mark 4 armour, and everything else about the Mark 10 is brand new. So the point being, the Mark 10 armour is completely modular. The standard Mark 10 is equivalent to Mark 8 when it comes to protection and manoeuvrability. But with it being modular, you can actually take some of the plates off for more stealth or speed-based missions, or put additional armour plating on when extra protection is required at the cost of manoeuvrability. What the two suits have in common though is on the back is the power supply. That is not a jetpack. Let me make it very clear, as strong as a Space Marine is, they cannot jump whilst wearing this armour. It's just too damn heavy. A Space Marine alone weighs 500 pounds. With their armour, you're looking at 750 pounds. So that's 250 pounds worth of armour there alone. Now both the Mark 8 and the Mark 10, in fact all marks of power armour, are made up of layers. The bottommost layer is electronically motivated fibre bundles that mimics the movement of a Space Marine's body, adding to their already considerable strength. Over the top of that you have a completely enclosed suit of combat armour composed of shaped adamantium and plasteel plates. Now this is good enough to stop most small arms fire, but they're Space Marines, they're going to need something more. Now this is the point where an IP creates some mythical metal like vibranium or mithril silver. Nope, not here. What the outer layer of armour is something called ceramite. Ceramite is a special ceramic type material that is highly resistant to both kinetic attacks, so good old bullets, and highly resistant to heat based attacks, so things like plasma, melter weapons, even laser weapons. And that's the real reason Space Marines can't jump. It's not because they're not strong enough, it's because they're walking around in a set of armour that is something akin to space concrete. Now with all the additional protection that the ceramite plating gives to the Space Marines, this is why they are considered somewhat damn near indestructible on the battlefield, because most weapons harmlessly bounce off or will just take a little chunk out of the ceramite. The ceramite layers itself are easy enough to repair, or should the worst come to the worst, you can just take the ceramite armour plate off and put a fresh one on. For years it has been considered that each suit of armour takes many decades to produce. But with the new Primaris coming along and them churning out armour like nobody's business, this has changed somewhat to the fact that the underlevels, specifically the electrically motivated fibre bundle suits that add to the strength, are the ones that take a lot of time and resources to produce. The ceramite armour platings can be cast very quickly and easily. Right, let's move on to some Space Marine weapons. The most common hand-to-hand weapon you'll see a Space Marine using is the iconic chainsword, which is exactly what it sounds like, a chainsaw that has been turned into a sword. Just to go back to the strength of ceramite, if you hit a chainsword against ceramite armour, it would rip all the teeth off the chainsword. But if a Space Marine hit you over the head with a chainsword, they would easily separate you from head to groin. Again, a Space Marine's chainsword would quite easily cut through the armour plating of any modern day tank. The next and probably the most recognisable weapon of a Space Marine's arsenal is the famed bolter. Now, out of all the fictional IPs out there are some very famous weapons, top three being, in this order, the lightsaber, the M41A pulse rifle and the Space Marine's bolt gun. And the bolt gun is probably the most misnamed gun in the world. The rounds it fires, the bolts, do not act like bolts at all. What they are is .75 caliber rocket propelled explosive rounds. In lore, the bolt shells are described as mass reactive. In reality, they are rocket propelled, armour piercing, high explosive rounds, known technically as heap rounds. With them being rocket propelled, all bolt rounds should be caseless, but every single bolter has an ejection port. I'm guessing this is in the case of a malfunction. The way a bolt round works is, in theory, it should use its armour penetrating capabilities to bury itself within the target before then detonating the high explosive aspect of the round, shredding any opponent that the bolt round is currently embedded in, which is why I say the bolt gun is misnamed and should be called the exploder, because frankly that's what happens to anything you shoot at with a bolter. It explodes violently. In combat, Space Marines typically work in squads of 5 to 10, all with the same loadout. That loadout can be effectively described as one of three, the first being a hand-to-hand role, the second being a ranged anti-personnel role, and the third being a heavy support role, generally in the form of anti-vehicle weaponry. Space Marines also have specialist Marines, sometimes either within the squads or separated on their own. These take the form of apothecaries, which are combat medics, tech marines who on the battlefield operate turrets, off the battlefield help maintain all the weapons and armour, and librarians, which, although librarian sounds boring, they're not. A Space Marine librarian is a very powerful psyker that can shoot bolts of lightning amongst other things. As I mentioned earlier, Space Marine creation takes a long time, and during that time they are trained to be masters of every form of combat, which means any Space Marine can pick up the weaponry of a fallen comrade and use it effectively. On top of that, every Space Marine is fully able to pilot or drive every vehicle or aircraft they have. So, the TLDR version. A Space Marine is effectively a genetically enhanced super soldier that fires bullets that make everything go pop, whilst wearing armour made of space concrete. I really should have started with that, it would have saved me 8 hours worth of video editing. And there we have it. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment. Better still, if you know somebody who could do with a bit of noob-splaining on Warhammer, then share this video with them. And at any point, if you learned something or laughed, then please hit that subscribe button. I won't ever be doing a Patreon or a merch store, so that subscribe button is the best way you can show your support and thanks from me.